The iPad has been in a weird place for a long time now. Sales peaked back in 2013 and 2014 with the release of the original iPad mini and the iPad Air. Those were the absolute pinnacle of iPad in terms of its popularity. And since then, even things like the 2018 iPad Pro and the complete redesign haven't been able to replicate the sales success of those early days. And it's crazy to think about because the iPad Air came out just 3 years after the original iPad, which didn't even have a camera or a retina display or Touch ID or anything like that. So the first couple years of iPad were an absolute whirlwind. And since then, things have felt, well, more than a little bit stagnant. When Apple announced the new iPad mini, I was disappointed because I found that it didn't quite recapture the magic of the original iPad mini, which was my first ever iPad back in 2012 when it came out. And likewise, I think many of us would agree that the magic has kind of dissipated from the iPad in the last couple of years. But recently, I've kind of rediscovered the iPad, and it was all thanks to one simple thing. Ta-da! I use it without a keyboard. Now, I know that I might sound like a crazy person, but I'm not even lying when I say that ditching the Magic Keyboard and using this iPad as purely a tablet with nothing on it has actually legitimately changed my view of this product category. It's the weirdest thing. But to clarify, I've always really liked the hardware of the iPad. Ever since 2018, the 11-inch iPad Pro especially is such a beautifully designed product that you just want to hold it. But I feel like Apple's focus for the past 6 or 7 years with the iPad has been trying to make it into a laptop. I mean, go back to those original commercials back in 2015 when they would ask, "What's a computer?"
Hey, what you doing on your computer?
What's a computer?
God, I hated those commercials so much. They were made fun of, and rightfully so, because they were stupid. The iPad was not then, and is not now, a replacement for a MacBook, at least for most people. But nonetheless, Apple has continued down this path by adding trackpad support, by having backlit keyboards, and the new Magic Keyboard even has an aluminum palm rest, just like a MacBook. So the hardware is there, but the software just isn't. iPadOS isn't macOS, for better or for worse. But the thing is, when you remove all that pretense, when you ditch the accessories and treat it as just a bare tablet, in my opinion, it actually improves the experience dramatically. But to explain why, we need to go back to basics, right after a word from today's video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Paperlike's Screen Protector 2.1, the original paper feel screen protector that started it all. Paperlike 2.1 aims to not only reduce reflections like Apple's nanotexture, but replicate the analog haptic feeling of writing on paper. The secret sauce are their nanodots, small microbeads that are evenly spread across the surface of the screen protector. And that's why Paperlike is renowned for their impact on writing and drawing with an iPad, transforming it into a realistic paper-like surface. Plus, they offer a 100-day satisfaction guarantee. So to learn more, check out the link in the description below. Big thanks to Paperlike for sponsoring, and now let's get back to it.
And we call it the iPad.
The original iPad keynote was a masterclass in explaining market strategy. Because what Steve Jobs was so good at, and that no other tech presenter has been able to replicate, was he could describe exactly how a product would fit into someone's life.
If there's going to be a third category of device, it's going to have to be better at these kinds of tasks than a laptop or a smartphone. Otherwise, it has no reason for being.
I just love the way that Steve Jobs could break down the market with a chart That's exactly what he did, and it worked incredibly well.
People argue whether it's a netbook with the keyboard missing or whether it's a portable media player that also does word processing and email. It is Apple's iPad tablet, and the reality is probably somewhere in between those two. It really is a hybrid device, but no matter what you call it or what category you put it in, there's one thing we figured out, and that's people seem pretty crazy about the Apple iPad so far.
In 2010, we have to remember the iPhone was ascendant. It was gaining features at a rapid pace, but it was nowhere near where it is today. And the laptop, likewise, was a much clunkier beast. They were bigger, they were heavier, and they normally ran on hard drives. So the iPad split that difference perfectly. The iPad took the lightweight operating system, super speedy Flash and ARM-based hardware, and the brilliantly intuitive touchscreen interface from the iPhone, and it combined it with the screen real estate and the reading room of a laptop. The original iPad was little more than a giant iPod Touch, but that's all it really needed to be. It was good at what it was designed to do. And critically, it wasn't too expensive. At $500, the original iPad was less than half the price of a MacBook Pro.
A lot of people can afford an iPad.
Compare that to today, where a base model iPad Pro plus a Magic Keyboard is more than a MacBook Air, even though it has ostensibly the same hardware underneath. And therein lies the crux of the problem with the iPad. As the MacBook improved and entered the Apple Silicon age, a lot of the benefits that the iPad carried over the laptop went away. Your MacBook now uses the same chips and architecture as the iPad, so it doesn't really have that speed advantage anymore. And with the advancements in iPad OS, Apple feels like they're trying to shoehorn Mac-like features into an iOS-like package, and frankly, it just doesn't work for a lot of people. But that's not to say that the iPad is worse than it used to be, because if you're doing anything with illustration, the iPad is better than ever before. Ever since the announcement of the Apple Pencil in 2015, Apple's focus on artists has been undeniably good for the iPad platform. Without Apple Pencil input on a touchscreen, a device might not even be useful to some people. But the problem for the iPad more broadly is that that group of people is largely satisfied. I mean, in the past 6 years, we've only gained a handful of features that would tempt them to upgrade. We've gotten additional Apple Pencil features like being able to hover and rotate your brushes, and we've gotten new display technology on the iPads such as ProMotion and now Tandem OLED. Those things are all great for artists, but the fundamental experience hasn't really changed all that much. And if you're not an artist, well then it really hasn't changed, because for the past 6 years, the basic recipe that makes an iPad or an iPad Pro or an iPad Air has not changed. And that's exactly why going back to basics has made my experience 10 times better. I personally think that the 11-inch iPad Pro is the perfect sweet spot. I think the 12.9 is too big, it's too much like a laptop, and I think that the smaller iPad mini is too close to a smartphone to be its own thing. But the 11-inch iPad Pro, when you use it just as is, as a slab of glass running an iOS Plus type interface, this is actually really enjoyable to use. And to be honest, I find myself doing most of the same things I would already do on my iPhone. I'm browsing Twitter, I'm browsing TikTok, I'm checking my email, I'm doing research for videos while adding to my Notes app, and I'm looking at Zillow listings because I'm getting ready to move apartments in a couple of months. So these aren't things that you need an iPad to do, right? I could do all of those things on my iPhone or my MacBook, but that was always the case. The original iPad didn't really bring any brand new technologies to the table. It was just doing them in a convenient form factor. And that's what happens when you treat the iPad like an iPad. It's a smartphone plus, an Ultrabook minus, but it gets the job done. And really the only problem that I have is the price. At $1,000, it's not a good value. I like it. Don't get me wrong, I think Tandem OLED and the new M4 iPads package are absolutely phenomenal, but I don't think you need to spend all this money. I would just go grab a used M1 iPad Pro, preferably with the cellular option. because that is where this thing becomes really powerful. When I'm traveling, I bring this iPad, put an eSIM on it, and I can use it while I'm sitting on a plane on the tarmac waiting to take off, just browsing the email and not using my phone battery, which I'll probably need to navigate once I get there. If I'm on a long road trip, I'll bring my iPad so that I can browse the internet or watch YouTube videos on a large screen that's also super light. Lots of airplanes nowadays even have tablet holders on the back of the seat so you can just stick it up there and enjoy your content. So maybe the problem with the iPad is that we're looking at it the wrong way. We're trying to compare this thing to a laptop because that's how much it costs. But really what we should be doing is looking at this as purely a tertiary device. For a lot of people, frankly, you just aren't gonna need one, but you might want one. And that's why the original iPad's $499 starting price was such a good idea. That's the exact price point that this product should be at. The problem is, if you wanna buy a new iPad for $500, you're gonna sacrifice. Frankly, and this is probably my privilege as a tech reviewer showing, I wouldn't use an iPad that doesn't have ProMotion. I really love ProMotion and it adds a ton to the experience. So if it were my money on the line, which coincidentally it is because I bought this, I would honestly not buy this. I would just get an M1 11-inch iPad Pro. That, to me, is the perfect iPad. It doesn't have the pretense of needing to replace your laptop. It's $500 and it's a good tablet. That's all the iPad really needs to be. Is it going to replicate the sales success of the olden days? Probably not. But is it really enjoyable to use? Absolutely. And that's really all that matters. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And of course, be sure to like and subscribe. And with that, I'll see you in the next one.